Hey guys, this is V. Rigoni, Max High Performance Real Estate Entrepreneur, and we're going to be answering some questions. Let's hit the like button. Let's subscribe to the channel. And remember what I always say, think big, start now, grow fast. So let's get on to the first question. Go ahead.
Cool. First question. How much money should someone put aside for like closing costs and like any unexpected problems with like the property?
Well, there should be a whole, if you're talking about it from a standpoint of an investment, and that's really where this is, right? Yes, some of this information could be used for a person who just wants to buy a house and live in it, never own a rental property, but we're really not that. We're really talking more about an investment side of it, right? And so then you got to look at it a little bit differently. You got to have a business plan around it, because when you're dealing with this, it isn't just getting into the house, right? You're going to have that 3.5% down payment if you're going FHA, or 5% on a conventional, whatever that is. And then you're going to have a point or two in closing costs, and with that's 1%. And so it's usually 1% of the mortgage. And so then you're going to need a couple $1,000s for that. And then you got to figure out, what are you going to do to the property? As part of the fact that you bought this property, you probably have a really good idea, and you should already know what you want to do to improve it. And when you buy a rental property, first off, when you go to buy it, you got to buy it right? Correct? And so in order to do that, you got to make sure that when you're spending the first dollars to improve that property, to bring in a tenant, that you're really maximizing what the valuation of that property is. You're going to improve that property so that it maxes out the valuation. And so you might need $5,000. You might need 10. You might need 15. It has to do with the individual project. It's not a percentage, because some properties that you're going to buy will need a whole lot of work, and it'll be a whole different business plan than another property where it doesn't need all that much except maybe some carpeting and some paint. And so then it'll just be a lot less. And then some of that you can actually put on a credit card and pay it off as time goes on. Now, am I telling you to stack up your credit cards? No. But there's been many of a real estate investor that his credit cards saved his bacon when he ran out of cash and needed to get some more things done because the tenant was going to be moving in a week. So I hope that answers the question. You're going to need some reserves to go back around. You're going to need to have the necessary the money to close the transaction beyond the down payment, and that's usually a few $1,000s. It could be 2 or 3 actually, depending upon whether you're paying all the closing costs and or you're getting the seller. Sometimes you get the seller to pay the closing costs as part of your offer. So there's a couple variations, but you're just going to have what your plan is and what it's going to cost you to fix it up, because that's your biggest expense when you go to close. It's just not what it's going to cost you at the closing, but what's it going to cost you to put it in the condition in which you need it to be in order to be a good a rental property.
All right, cool. So the video that we just did before this, you were like kind of touching on the importance of credit. So how does someone with like no to like low credit build themselves up to a point where they can get a property? And what is like the recommended credit score that someone should have before even jumping into real estate?
Yeah, well, there's always, that's a great question. First off, so let me kind of read this question back. Like, what kind of credit do you need in order to get going into real estate, and how do you fix your credit enough to get to where to be able to use your credit in a positive way to buy real estate?
Or how to build it. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, how to get it back.
Yeah.
If you're good. So first off, I believe with FHA, but again, it has to do with the lender. If the lender is willing to accept it, I believe that FHA will go down as far as 585. All right. But you'll have to hunt for a lender that was willing to lend you money based upon that minimum credit score. So most people are going to be in the 6s. Once you get into the higher 6s, that seems to go away. 687, 680, 685 kind of thing. And then once you're over 700, then you start to be in that category of good credit. And so that's where the credit comes in place for real estate. But you got to have a credit score, and you got to have decent credit. Now, as I've explained before in some of the other videos, if you do have some things on your credit, well, there's a process for taking those things off. If there's, some bad debts and late payments or too many credit inquiries. These are all things that will hurt your credit. If you're using too much of your credit, if you have a credit card that allows you to borrow $3,000 on it and you're borrowing $3,000, well, you're hurting your credit score. They will give you, they look at what is called credit usage, percentage of credit usage. So they never really want you going above 30%. And it's highly recommended to get the best scores to keep it under 10. Now, if you have some of these issues, you got to identify which ones are yours. Are you applying for too many store credit cards? Because every time you apply for a store credit card to get 10% off or 20% off that purchase, they ding your credit. And it takes a long time for that to naturally fall off, that credit inquiry. So don't do stupid shit that it's going to ruin your credit score if you want to be a real estate investor or you want to buy a house just to live in it as a single family home. Understand, learn about credit and how to maintain good credit and then how to repair the credit if it's bad. One of the ways you can repair the credit, you can hire a company. Now understand that these people who do credit repair, they don't just have a base price. They usually have a monthly fee. So, and I've used them in the past, and they can be very good. They can be a very good ally to fixing your credit. But understand, the longer it takes, the more money they make. And what they do is they let's say you have too many inquiries or you have some late payments. They will flood that creditor with paperwork asking him to explain this, explain that, blah, blah, blah. And then if they don't over a certain period of time, then they can go to the credit bureau and say, hey, they didn't respond to me. And so therefore this needs to be taken off. And under a lot of circumstances like that, then the credit bureau has to take them off. And so this is their game. This is how they work. Now you can do the same thing for free, but good luck with that. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort, but there are people out there that have fixed their own credit and didn't pay anybody a dime. All right. I paid, it took like 6 months. But what I had to do, and I talk about this in the credit video, and if you want more information, go back and look at the video that has to do with credit, and it'll go deeper. But in the same token, it's the old thing, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you're going to hire one of these law firms, and typically all law firms, you're not going to deal with lawyers, you're going to deal with agents of the lawyers, and you got to keep calling them every couple of days and making sure that they know you're in their face and they're doing more and more, and in order to get it done faster and faster. If you just sit back and say, oh, I gave it to them, well, then good. You're going to pay the bill next month and one after that. And I don't know how long it's going to take, because the longer they take, the more they make. So that's kind of how you have to deal with it. First of all, try to stop screwing it up. Some of the things you're doing, like I said, like getting all these store credit cards, they screw it up. And then there's sometimes you have to hire someone to get it fixed. And then also the other thing is, remember, watch your credit usage. Take that to heart. That's really the bottom line when it comes to using credit and maximizing your credit for buying real estate or buying anything. And because you're going to pay more interest if you got bad credit. That's how the game works. Or they won't give you the loan or the credit if it's not good enough.
All right, cool. You were talking about FHA loans, obviously, which you can only take one out if it's residential. When is it the right time for someone to go into residential versus commercial? And can you kind of explain the difference between the two?
Sure. The FHA loans, first of all, there's several different kinds of FHA loans. There's loans where it's just for the mortgage, and that's for a property that's between 1 and 4 units. So a single family home all the way up to a fourplex or a small four unit apartment building, depending upon where you're at. If you're in the city, whatever their terminology is, FHA will lend on that. Now, in order to lend on it, it has to pass an FHA appraisal. And so FHA's appraisals have certain requirements, and they're not that difficult. And the roofs have to be in the right condition. There has to be, if you're on a well, the water has to pump out fast enough. Foundations have to be in proper condition. You can't have what they call earth to wood contact. So wood cannot be touching the earth. So there's all these they have certain FHA requirements. So if the property passes an FHA requirement, even if it's a multifamily, a small multifamily, like a 2-unit, a 3-unit, or 4-unit, you can then go ahead and you can purchase that as as your residence. Well, you can't live in all the units, but they're going to require you because FHA is designed to be for residential use, residential purposes. And so you're going to have to live in one of the units for at least 1 year. Now you say, well, how can I afford to make a mortgage payment to qualify for a mortgage payment if it's got 4 units and I got to live in one of them? Well, the rents from the other units will go towards your qualification. They'll apply those rents towards your qualifying of that loan. So in some respects, you're still only qualifying to live in 1 unit, the cost of 1 unit. Example, let's say it's a 4-unit building and you're paying $100,000, really $400,000 for the building. It's $100,000 a unit. And it would be kind of like you going out and buying a 1-unit single family home and then having to qualify off of your income for that 1 unit. The other units that are in that building, the tenants, their income will go towards that qualification for those units. That's how you quickly can become a landlord. But with 3.5% down, that's freaking insane. So take advantage of what the government is doing, what they're allowing you to do. Just don't be one of the sheep that think you just want to have that picket fence, and have that single family home. That's freaking ridiculous. How would you like to know that in 25 years and 30 years or whatever the years are, that building is fully paid off? You haven't lived in it for 19 or 20, up to 29 years. You haven't even, if it's a 30-year loan, that means you lived in it for 1 year and then moved out and rented that unit and did it all over again. So you literally could 30 years from now have that building. It could be fully paid off. You're collecting all that rent. You used an FHA loan to buy it, and then you only had to live in it for 1 year. That's insane. That's how good the government is when it comes to trying to help you get into a property. But just don't be one of the sheep that just goes by a single family home, and now that mortgage is all your burden. When you do the multifamily, when you do the small residential multifamily, and that's different than multifamily commercial, different loans, much more strict. So when you're doing this, take advantage of the fact that the government is going to help you get into business. Because when you own a multifamily unit building, aren't you an entrepreneur now? They helped you get into the business of rental property. So basically, that's kind of the thing. Use the FHA for the purpose in which it is there for, okay? And then there'll be some qualification around that when it comes to multifamily and the use of the rents to qualify for the loan. So that really is going to bring this to a conclusion. If you have any other comments or questions, just put them in the comment section, and we'll throw them into these questions, because from time to time now, about once a week, we're also sitting down and answering some of the questions that had come from the fact that I sit here and I spend 20 minutes to 40 minutes doing a video, and then, I can't answer every question you have because I'm not in your head or in the heads of, thousands of other people that watch this. And so, but take a minute, put in the comments, ask the question, and you'll get it answered. And if it's the kind of question that requires a full program, we'll do a full program on it. So talk to you soon. Let's get out there. Let's make it happen. And let's think big. Let's start now and grow fast. Talk to you soon.